All right, we are going to try this again. Welcome, everybody, to Locked On crossover between the Avalanche and Mr. Adam Denker from the Locked On Lightning, because when these two teams get together, you got to have a crossover. So a lot to get to on today's episode, including the matchup between these two and that Hart Trophy race. New episode of Locked On Avalanche and Locked On Lightning coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody. It would not be a podcast with myself and Mr. Adam Denker if there was not some technical difficulties. Denker and I go back to and he even had a wardrobe change. With what the heck do you have on now? What is this?
Got the
not monstrosity you have on right now.
chain.
Okay,
you guys were wearing Colorado stuff, so felt left out.
So that's what you went with. Okay. Anyway, Denker and I we used to host an episode of Locked On NHL, and it was just like we always had issues connection wise and stuff like that. And we haven't done a crossover in a while. And what happens? Connection issues and problems left and right. So we're on version 2.0 of this episode right now. We weren't that far into it, which is a good thing, but we had to basically restart. So we're doing that now. Hopefully this one sticks. And welcome everybody to a very special crossover and making this your first listen of the day of Locked On Avalanche and Locked On Lightning. These two teams battling it out on the ice on Thursday. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that Hart Trophy race, which is obviously very talked about, especially with these two fan bases. And we'll get some predictions as well. So where we want to start yet again is the state of both of these teams. And so, Adam, fill in kind of Avalanche fans on how things are going for the Lightning so far this year. It's been an entertaining one, even for someone that doesn't follow them as closely as like you or fan of the team. They're a team that is still in the they're still in the talked about circles of the NHL because they're the Lightning. They have a good history and a good recent history. But how have things been going this year for them?
Well, let's start off from the beginning. So we start off the year without Andrei Vasilevskiy, which tinfoil hat time real quick, which I didn't get into the first version of this attempted podcast. You get news and injury about him. I believe it was like late. It was like August, September that he has this issue with his back. He's getting surgery. He's going to be out for the first 2 months. By the way, I think he's been playing with it since last year, but no one's going to admit to that at this point. Mass conspiracy, I think, that no one's talking about. It's up there with Watergate. But
really, wow.
So you start the season with former Avalanche goaltender Jonas Johansson, who, in my opinion, loved JoJo. I thought he did a very good job to start off the year. The guy was the starting at one point. We were actually entertaining the idea that this guy could possibly split time with Vasilevskiy once he comes back. Chris, you know me.
Stop
it. You know me. At one point, he was playing so well, and when I mean so well, he had a shutout that I thought we could possibly entertain the fact that, okay, you know what? We'll ease Vasilevskiy into the conversation. In the meantime, he's splitting time with JoJo. Didn't work out as well. The Lightning were out of the playoffs, basically, and it looked like they were in a downward spiral that they could not come back from once Thanksgiving rolled around. That's American Thanksgiving for you listening in Canada. And so Vasilevskiy comes back. He's not looking himself. The defense is playing terrible. The only shining star, which we'll get into later on, is Nikita Kucherov at that point. And then things start to slowly turn around for this Lightning team. They get into the wild card. They're battling it out with Detroit, Jersey, a couple other teams, Washington. The Flyers are in there at one point. And you're starting to see this team pull it together. And then they have a phenomenal month of December, a good month of January. And now we find ourselves in the top three of the Atlantic Division. Vasilevskiy's playing phenomenal. He had a Vezina-type trophy night the other night in Boston. they had a big win against Boston in a shootout. They're playing up to the level of the better teams, I think, in the NHL. And we get to see if, as you know me, Chris, the one thing that has always kind of been the Achilles heel for this team has been consistency. Now, can they bring that play that they had in Boston into tomorrow night's game against Colorado? We'll see. But on the other side of that, I think it presents, regardless win or lose, a good test for this team, because I always like to see, especially after a big win, like against a team like Boston, is that a fluke, or is that kind of the start of something even better? And what other way to test that than to go up against you guys, who, a lot of Lightning fans, as they should be, are still pretty chapped about losing in the Stanley Cup Finals to you guys a couple of years ago.
That's
So,
understandable.
A little bit of a revenge game in the last matchup of the year.
All right.
Ironically enough, in that building where it happened. So it would be an interesting matchup. And I know the Avalanche fan base are looking at the game the same way, as a little bit of a prove it, because the Avalanche just came off a win against the Washington Capitals, which is their first win since the All-Star break. So they also would like to see if this is sustainable, if this is a team going in the right direction. And from Tampa Bay finally putting some pieces together and becoming kind of a winning unit again, I don't know where they see themselves for the rest of the season, but Colorado would like to prove that they are also putting something together. So I'm looking forward to this matchup, because the Avalanche need this kind of like moment to turn things around. And back in Tampa, getting that W, that'd be exactly what the Avalanche need right now.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question for you guys. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Like, how I said, like, the Lightning were, at one point, we were out of the playoff race. Like, it looked like, is this the time? Should we start considering selling? Stamkos may not re-sign. It's time to maybe trade him. Was there ever a moment this year at any point? Now, I haven't really been following you guys as closely as I normally do, and some of my listeners probably don't, but like, was there kind of a moment where you kind of looked at yourselves and were like, oh crap, this may not be the kind of season we imagined it to be, where, it might go all to the wayside?
So, as from a standings standpoint, no, like they've been in a playoff spot pretty much all season long. And it's kind of been the way that we were expecting it between the Avs and Dallas, and Winnipeg has been that like team that's been kind of like the surprise, right? So it was going to be like a two-headed monster. Who's going to be the third team in that division? So right now it's the three of them. They've been in the driver's seat sometimes, but they've never been standings wise in jeopardy of missing the playoffs. Now, where it gets a little bit interesting is how they're playing, because it has been a roller coaster of a ride so far, Adam, and we're seeing it now. Like, before the All-Star break, things were good. Like, I think the Avs were playing their best hockey of the year heading into the All-Star break, so much so that we didn't want the All-Star break to come here, because you wanted them to keep playing. And look what's happened. They've come out of this All-Star break, and like Kyle just said, they just got a win on this 6-game road trip to start their second half. They just got a win. They got 1 point in overtime in the first game in New York, and they just get a win in Washington. So even if they get a win in Tampa, it's not a good road trip that they've had. And that's been a year for the Avs.
Yeah, honestly, it's one of those, if you're looking at the box score, and you're looking at your place in the standings, it's business as usual for the Colorado Avalanche. But if you're watching night in, night out, the full 60, you could find something to complain about and say, hey, I don't know if this is sustainable. And over the course of 2 or 3 games, you might be right. They will get it corrected. They'll outscore this problem. They'll have a random shutout from Georgiev just thrown in there somewhere, but then sub 900 save percentages through the rest of the stretch. It's so inconsistent, but they're sitting in a good place in the Central. So everybody's right and everybody's wrong.
Yeah. And for, I think the last thing Avalanche fans wanted to hear from you, Denker, is JoJo potentially being able to split time with the great Andrei Vasilevsky, because that is where Avalanche fans are just their frustrations lie in not having a backup right now. And they had multiple times with JoJo, multiple. And whenever he came through, he was not that good. So it wasn't like it was a downer when he left, but it seems like he's come into his own a little bit with Tampa. And to not, they would right now, the Avalanche fan base would love to have him as a backup for Georgiev, because he's just playing way too much and they don't have a reliable backup. So that's kind of where I want to go with this next question for you is like, what is working for not just goaltending? We know goaltending is they have the all-world Vasilevsky, but what are the things that are working for the Lightning? Being an Avalanche fan and for an Avalanche team, what are the things that are going to be challenging for the Avalanche to overcome for the Lightning? Where are they playing well and where are they maybe a little bit vulnerable?
Well, one of the things that has really, really changed, I think, the way the Lightning have played this year has been the addition of Luke Glendening. I think that having him in the rotation, I mean, he is the best face-off guy on this team by far, and you couple him with Braden Point, and then you also have Nick Paul in that mix. I mean, the Lightning are one of the best teams in the face-off circle in the league. This team, that's really where they dominate. They're one of their biggest issues last year was the fact that their puck possession, I mean, that's a kind of a game that they play, and when you're losing face-off after face-off after face-off, it's kind of hard to dominate the puck possession. So having him in that mix and being able to kind of lead the way in the face-off circle has really transformed this team. The other thing that has really helped this team down the road, especially in some of these tougher games, has been the power play. They have been, I'm very skeptical sometimes about those numbers. I think sometimes, the Lightning also draw a lot of penalties. That's it too, to where they're getting a lot more opportunities than most, and that's why the number is so high. But I mean, really, it comes down to two words, and that's Nikita Kucherov. I mean, the way he has played this year, he's done a phenomenal job on the power play. And someone must have said to him in the offseason, just shoot the damn puck, because this year he's been shooting at such a high rate to where he is going to shatter his career high in shots in a season. And the fact that they're just letting him go out there and basically take control of every sequence. I mean, it shows you not only how good he is, but also maybe there's some sort of transition, I guess, in the coaching room when they're trying to reevaluate how they should allow this team to play. And really, that's been the things that have really helped this Lightning team. Now, on the other side of that, the things that they've really not done a good job of is really playing defense. And that's kind of why JoJo played so well early on in the season, is that the Lightning defense was so putrid that Johansson only giving up maybe 2 or 3 goals was considered a great game. And, that's really what it came down to. But then in the last couple of months, especially, this defense has really picked it up. Eric Chernak was back. He's back now, and after missing about a month, and he's playing better, and he's healthy, which is really most important thing. Now, on the downside of that, you lose Mikhail Sergachev in the Ranger game for the rest of the season. The Lightning are definitely going to be big players at the deadline for a big-time defenseman. So a lot of people are going to complain that, well, especially if Sergachev returns for the playoffs, well, you had this $8 million defenseman sitting on the bench for you. Of course you're going to win games like this. But really, as long as they continue to play defense, which has been so shaky, I think that they'll be fine down the stretch. But if they could just rely on some of the things that I spoke about that have really worked out in their favor, I think they should be a very good team going forward.
So I'm hearing the Lightning are looking for defensemen, and you guys are having no problems winning faceoffs. Keep your phones open.
Yeah, this is going to be all right. So what did you say? They told Kucherov he had to what? What did you say? They had to play better or score more? What was it that you said?
Shoot more.
Shoot more. Okay, so then next year, what they have to tell him is care about the All-Star game. That's for next year. One thing at a time. All right, let's get a quick break in here, and then I want to ask you where they're heading with the trade deadline, if anywhere, and then we're going to talk about this this Hart race. So we'll talk about all that coming up next. All right, first, how would you like to get to know someone better in an hour than you would in a year? Understanding one another better prevents small misunderstandings from becoming big, ongoing fights. After providing more than 20 years of service to small and mid-sized businesses, helping management groups navigate conflict and onboarding new employees, Camino is offering a digital seminar for families and couples. Did your Valentine's gift of tickets to the game not go over as well as you had hoped? Get the couples and family online seminar for 25% off for the month of February using the discount code Locked On. Again, that discount code is Locked On for 25% off for the rest of the month at CaminoConsulting.ca, or mention Locked On when reaching out for a business seminar and receive the first 5 profiles for free. All right, sir. So trade deadline is here, and I always like to know what other fan bases are thinking, what they need, maybe who they're going after. I know the Lightning have been in not unlike other teams, kind of a cap crunch, and they had to kind of get rid of some guys maybe they didn't want to get rid of in the offseason. And where do they stand now? Like, what do they need, and can they make moves if need be?
Well, up until the Sergachev injury, Chris, I think it was really, maybe another depth forward. Now, we weren't going to give up nearly as much as for Tanner Jeannot as we did last year, but now obviously with Sergachev out, that leaves a huge hole in this defensive core. With Sergachev being out, you have $8.5 million off the books that you really get to play with. Really, what the issue now that lies is that your lack of assets. What are you giving back? And it really goes down to needs with teams. I mean, really, the two front runners right now. The two names that are being floated are Noah Hannafin from Calgary and Sean Walker from Philly. I feel like the Walker one is a little bit of a stretch, considering why would the Flyers want to trade a defenseman, a second liner, when they're in the middle of making the playoffs themselves.
Right.
So it looks like Hannafin right now might be the safer bet, as Calgary looks like they're selling for the rest of the year. But
which is weird because Calgary is kind of in the mix too. They're not that far back, but they're towing that line of, do we even if we make it, we might not go far. So let's just set ourselves up a little bit more for the future.
I think that they are going to be that kind of a team that we see every year that kind of tries to hold on as long as possible, but is going to pull the cord at some point. I mean, they had a good effort the other night against the Rangers, so that's maybe a little enticing. But I think that Hannafin would be a good fit for this team, and you have the potential or the possibility, if you choose to walk away from Stamkos after the year, to sign this guy to a long-term contract. But at the end of the day, it really depends on what does Calgary value that the Lightning have, and frankly, the Lightning don't really have much. They don't have draft picks. I mean, the only thing that's mildly sexy to the eye in this year's draft that the Lightning have is the Blackhawks 7th rounder. Other than that, you have 2 more years without a first-round draft pick. Do the Lightning want to start trading away draft picks more when, especially their farm system is already depleted? I mean, that's kind of the questions that Julien Brisebois is going to have to be asking himself going forward. So I would ideally, in a perfect world, would love to get Hannafin for pennies on the dollar, but I doubt that Calgary is going to let him go for anything more than what they deserve.
I'm looking at that roster. Boy, that Anthony Cirelli name.
Nah, not going to happen.
No, it's
not going to happen.
And it's interesting to hear how just one injury changes the kind of the game plan on how you guys are going to attack the rest of the season, because the Avalanche made a whole lot of moves before the season started, one being Ross the Boss Colton and Miles Wood and Ryan Johansson. And the Ryan Johansson move is just not working out. And hearing you talk about faceoffs and controlling the puck just made me really sad inside. And I sure would love a member of the Avalanche to win a faceoff. So to have that be a part of the Colorado Avalanche, teams in your situation, the Avalanche have defensemen. They have Ryan Johansson. They can make moves happen. So
yeah, Ryan Johansson's like he's been okay on faceoffs. You can have him. You can be even better in faceoffs and get a lot slower in the process if you want to make that deal. I do that right now.
So you're saying what? Ryan Johansson for Anthony Cirelli?
We could give you Bo Byram or Sam Girard.
I mean, it's just semantics here.
I'll take a newly minted Devon Taves. I mean, if you want to start talking turkey here, boys.
Yeah. All right. Clearly, we are not GMs. All right, let's get into this Hart race, sir, because that's kind of where these two teams are connected right now. They were connected with the Stanley Cup final, obviously, and for this year, it's a two-headed battle between MacKinnon and Kucherov. Yeah, that guy from Edmonton is he's coming down the home stretch, and he's gonna maybe make it a three-way race. I don't know. I think this is, as long as these two guys continue the way that they're going, I think it's between the two of them. Sure, McDavid will get some looks because he's McDavid. We get it. But that's boring. We talk about him all the time. MacKinnon, Kucherov. Why is Kucherov going to finish second to MacKinnon?
I'm going to sound 100% biased for this, but I don't care. I mean, I look at it this way. You take Kuch off this roster, in reality, where are the Lightning? They're probably at the bottom or towards the bottom of the division right now, especially in the first couple of weeks of the season where you're missing your all-star goaltender. This team's not playing any defense, really. You have a goaltender in net who is playing well, putting up a valiant effort, but it's not the same as what you're accustomed to. And then on the other side of that, your offense is just really struggling to find its groove. You have Steven Stamkos, who still thinks he's Alex Ovechkin 2.0, trying to just set up in the circle for these one-timers. Not working. Teams are totally prepared for it. Braden Point, he's playing well, but he can't do it all himself. Brandon Hagel's playing okay, but at the end of the day, I mean, you take Kucherov away, who is so heavily involved in pretty much everything that happens offensively for this team. Those guys probably don't play well. If you insert a mediocre player or an average NHLer, this team, we could possibly be talking about a sell-off right now. And so I know it's, a lot of times, it goes to McDavid because he's just doing spectacular things, but we got to get back to the core of the trophy here, guys. It's most valuable player. Who's more valuable to their team? And I'm sure you would probably have somewhat of a similar argument for Nathan MacKinnon. I mean, he has all the talent in the world. The guy absolutely, I was talking about it on my show the other day when I was having this conversation. Nathan MacKinnon scares the crap out of me. Knowing that we have to face off against him where he does not too far off the same amount of things that I think we could agree to a certain extent that Connor McDavid does, with a little less speed. I think that, those two guys aren't that far separated. But at the end of the day, you look at the guy who has the most points and what he means to his team, and that's Nikita Kucherov.
And, just to piggyback on Chris's question there, well, Nikita Kucherov, this is a wonderful year for him. And it's fun to go back and forth and watch night in, night out Nathan MacKinnon and Kucherov go back and forth with their output every night. But doesn't it feel like Kucherov is kind of doing this out of necessity to keep the season going for the Lightning? Because there are so many nights that we'll watch Nathan MacKinnon do this, and he had his 4-goal game, and it felt like Nathan MacKinnon had another gear. Like, it feels like Kucherov is doing this out of necessity, and MacKinnon is doing this as a nicety. Like, he could, if he wanted to get 6, he could. If he felt like this season was on his back, there's a whole nother gear or two. And this isn't even playoff Nathan MacKinnon. Do you think this is sustainable for Kucherov for the rest of the year?
Yeah, if that's a good question, man. If so much is riding on him, I know, we're so far into the season, but could there be some burnout there for Kucherov? I didn't really think about that, Kyle. So that's a good way to look at it.
And I think this is the thing that keeps up some Lightning fans, because eventually one of two things is going to happen to him, because that's just the way it is with this guy. He's going to get hurt, or he's going to just completely flame out. And is the question is it going to be in the regular season or in the first round of the playoffs? And that's, I think, the scary thing. I think that's really the scary thing with this guy, because this is the first year in which he has really done a phenomenal job. You could tell he's probably in the best shape that he's been ever. He's doing everything. He's laying out hits. There was one game a couple of weeks ago where he was laying out hits in the dirty areas. But that's the thing that we always worry about with these big hits that he sees. He got jacked up a couple of games ago where he got up slowly, and Lightning Nation collectively held its breath. And that's the one thing that's really scary with this guy, is that when he gets injured, it's not a couple of games, it's a couple of months. Wow. So that's the thing that is probably in the back of everybody's mind. But no, I get where you're going with it, Kyle. He's doing it at a necessity 100%. Like I said, whereas MacKinnon's kind of just doing it because he's just out there having fun, because he's one of the top most talented players in the world, where Kuch, yes, very talented, top 5 in the league. But at the same time, like I said before, you don't get these performances out of him where he's getting 2-3 points per night. Lightning aren't where they are, and it could very well be the difference between a top 3 spot in the division or bottom of the division, and possibly middle, towards probably the middle of the league.
Now, if he doesn't flame out or whatever, and both these guys continue at the pace that they continue at and finish off the season 1-2 in scoring, let's say that happens, because you kind of threw that in there, saying like, let's get back to what the MVP, the essence of the MVP, in putting more of an emphasis on the value of the player. And you threw in there that it's the guy who leads league in scoring. I'm not sold on that for this year, because if these two guys finish like within 5 points of each other, I don't think voters are going to look at, okay, well, and Kucherov has more. I don't know if voters are going to say like, okay, that's essentially like a tie in terms of points. And what do? We still have an award for the guy who wins, who has the most points in the league. And we have an award for a guy who has most goals in the league. So they're going to get that. So I don't think there's as much of an emphasis on the overall who's leading in points. I think it goes back to your point on value. And both of these guys clearly have value to their team. And for the Avalanche fan base, it's going to lie with MacKinnon. For the Lightning fan base, it's going to lie with Kucherov. And it's about those in between, people, and where do they sit, and especially voters. And I'm sorry, but what I think this is going to boil down to is the fact that Nathan MacKinnon does not have one yet. And I honestly think some voters are going to look at that and say, that's a wrong that needs to be right, because he should have had at least one already. That still will go down as maybe one of the most overlooked Hart Trophy rejections ever, when they gave it to Taylor Hall over Nathan MacKinnon. So I think, and even having said that, I'm really excited to see. I want these guys to continue and finish the season as is, because I think this is going to be a fun and exciting vote, and a really close vote. And when's the last time we've gone into a Hart Trophy award genuinely not knowing who it is? Like we knew it was, it was, save for one vote, a unanimous Connor McDavid last year. So I think it's going to be a little bit exciting to hear the name read when you really don't know that it's I think it's going to be really, really close. It's not going to be a runaway for either one of these guys. But I think in the end, I think that matters to some voters, that that Nathan MacKinnon does not have that on his resume yet. That's why I feel like they might lean to him a little bit more. If he's already had one, because Kucherov only has one, right? Does he have
he
multiple?
only has one, 19.
Yeah. So if they both had one, then we're talking about something different. But it's just a personal feeling I have. Like, that might push Nathan MacKinnon over the top.
I mean,
maybe I'm wrong.
You know, I hope Cooch wins it, but like I said, you know, I very much respect what MacKinnon does and how he plays. So I wouldn't be mad. I'm sure there's some Lightning fans that would be mad if MacKinnon were to win. My only wish for this, and I'm just as excited as you guys are, is that I don't know who's going to win, you know, but
right.
I will say this right now with you two guys here as my witnesses. If there are any votes for Austin Matthews in this race, those Canadian writers need to have their vote taken away and their credentials taken away, because I was thinking about that today, and I thought about you, Chris, when I was talking about on my episode. You know, he's up there in goals right now, and you know the Canadian media, how biased they are. If it's not going to McDavid, it's going to go to Matthews.
Oh, okay. So, well, I mean, time will tell, but it will make it interesting. It will make it very, very interesting. We'll have to wait and see, and then do our off-season crossover kitchen sink episode and include that. So, all right, let's get to predicting this game. How do we feel like it's going to pan out? We'll get to some predictions. We'll do that coming up next. First, let's hear from Game Time, and you shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event, because Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, with killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seats, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Some of the stuff that we love about Game Time is, of course, like we said, the view from your seat, the way it's incorporated into the app. It's beautiful. Kyle just scrolls endlessly looking at views of stadiums in the Game Time app, because he's just that type of guy.
You never know.
You never know. So, and they also have flash deals and zone deals. So if you're looking for a specific zone, you can focus in on that and get some pretty sweet deals. So go to Game Time, download the app, create an account, use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, create an account and redeem the code Locked On, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. All right, Avs and Lightning. Let's get to some predictions here. We kind of talked in the beginning on what's going well for the Lightning. This is almost like a carbon copy, these two teams, save for the goaltending. Goaltending is, I think, you know, you guys obviously have the upper hand in that. But defensively, it's been a little bit of a struggle for the Avalanche. It seems like it has been for the Lightning. Offensively, Avs have been outscoring their problems, which is not what you want. But offensively, they keep going back and forth with Vancouver on who has most goals in the league. So they're right up at the top. And clearly, with Kucherov doing what he's doing, you know, points are not a problem for either one of these teams. So clearly, this is going to be a 1-0 game in a shootout, correct? Right. What do you think, Denker? What do you got?
I really liked this game to end, you know, tight, 3-1, 2-1, kind of a lower scoring on the lower side of things, 1-goal game. I'm really hoping to have Cooch and MacKinnon both go off, because I believe this game isn't on national television. So I hope this will make the
travesty.
You know, kind of punch the air when they find out that Cooch and MacKinnon both have 3 points and 2 goals each. So I just hope a good game out of both teams. If the Lightning go out there and play well, I know that they have a good chance of winning. If they lose, listen, I never get angry about losing to the good teams. And as long as there is a good effort and they're not completely played out of the building, I think that, especially if they show the same effort they played against Boston the other night, I think they have a good shot as any. I expect a big game out of Cooch. You know, he might seem lackadaisical when maybe asked about this stuff. And, you know, there was actually, Chris actually brought it to my attention a couple of weeks ago. Stamkos came out, made those comments about, you know, how Cooch is really not getting the attention he deserves. It is what it is. I mean, Tampa, you know, whatever market you want to view them as, but I hope he has a great game, and I hope MacKinnon does too. And then, you know, we could kind of say in this last matchup of the year, your 2 superstars, the 2 guys that, you know, are going for it in points, play their butts off, and, you know, you leave the rest to the face-offs and the goaltending. and let the game unfold from there.
Yeah, which is
Kyle
not what
shaking his
the
head.
Avalanche are known for right now. Go ahead, Kyle.
And the Tampa Bay Lightning will be coming into this matchup with the 10th ranked faceoff percentage in the league. The Avs are sitting down in the 20s. Like, this is not what you want. And by the way, we haven't mentioned it this whole episode. Tampa Bay Lightning have the best power play in the league.
Oh, yeah.
And the Colorado Avalanche are going to be heading into Tampa. And you can't get caught up in that moment. The hostile environment, you can't get baited into that physical play, draw a penalty, that home cooking referee, and then you get in the box and Tampa just starts pounding away on the power play. The Avalanche have to play the game in between the ears because half this team, they don't have any of those memories for the cup and the rivalry between the two teams in that finals. Half that cup winning team is no longer a part of this Avalanche team. So you have to be smart with it. And this game, every game since the All-Star break, I have felt worse and worse about this matchup. It's going to be tight. It's going to be high scoring. It's going to be physical. It might even take extra frames or possibly a shootout, but it's going to be one of those games. And thankfully, Arizona's on the other side for the Colorado Avalanche of this Tampa Bay Lightning matchup, but you just want to get through it.
That's not thankfully.
No,
they struggle against Arizona for some reason.
They are the kryptonite for the Colorado Avalanche.
They are.
That's understood, but this Tampa Bay matchup is going to be brutal, and you want to see what this team looks like for playoff matchup. This is take a picture. This is playoff hockey.
Definitely sets the tone for the rest of the year for both teams, I think.
Yep.
For me, Adam, you said you don't mind losing to good teams. We talked to Kyle and I talked about this last week. I hate losing to good teams because those are the teams that you measure yourself up to. I don't mind losing to them if it's like just a battle and you're like, back and forth and one, you know what I mean? That I can take that. But the Avs have had two pretty bad losses on this road trip against Carolina and then against Florida, where they just got outplayed. And those I don't like. So I don't want that to happen. I don't want another game. The Ranger game, that was a good game. That was a hard fought game. You were in control of that game for a lot of it. And then you said 2 late goals and you get the overtime point. I don't want what happened in Carolina. I don't want what happened in Florida. So, and I don't know right now, like the way that this road trip has gone, it's been a battle. For the only game they've looked semi good is the last one in Washington. And that's Washington. That's not the Lightning. That's not Carolina. So I want to see. I would love it. I would love a Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird back and forth, Kucherov and MacKinnon. That would be a highlight to me. And you see some killer saves by both of these guys, and it needs overtime to get decided. And that's what I want to see. What we're gonna get. You just don't know with this Avalanche team right now. You could get that. You could get they get shut out 5-0. You really don't know. Or you were gonna say something. Okay?
Yeah, and you were saying the best game of the year or of this little road trip that also had 2 empty net goals in it. So
yeah, well, I mean, and they needed empty net goals because there was an absolutely horrible call that let Alex Ovechkin get a power play goal. So they were in that position because of the refs. Thank you. So whatever. All right, let's wrap this thing up. It should be entertaining. Should be fun. Obviously 2 very good teams. So let's hope they play like that out on the ice. Mr. Denker, throw out where our fans can follow you over on the socials.
Give me a follow at DenkyDank, DenkyD8NK. If you want to hear about my post-game views of tomorrow night's game, go ahead and follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. I want to hear the hate from Avalanche Nation under in the comments. I want to feel it. I want to feel it. I want to be able to take it with me throughout my day and just nestle it near. So go ahead. And
there's no hate.
Win, yeah.
Yeah, maybe after that.
If you fail to win a face-off or stop a puck, but
that'll happen. If this is anything less than 70-30 for face-offs, I will be shocked.
I'm going to say right now the Lightning are going to win 52% of the face-offs tomorrow night.
I will FanDuel that. I will FanDuel that right now. And
Luke Glendening's going to go off like Patrice Bergeron off.
It's probably, I say 70-30 kind of joking, but what was it? Just wasn't it like 65-35 last game?
Yeah,
though?
It was atrocious.
It's horrible. So
yeah, but you guys still
won. Don't shine the turd, Denker. It's bad. It's bad. All right. And if any of you Lightning fans want to follow us over on Twitter, XLOPN_Avalanche, as well as all the socials, and you can follow Mr. Shaggy Von Doom on his personal page at
Shaggy Von Doom. Anywhere you look.
Funny how that works. All right, everybody. Enjoy the game. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. That's appreciated. From Locked On Lightning, he is Mr. Mixtape Adam Denker. I'm Chris Maselli. He's Mr. Shaggy Von Doom from Locked On Lightning. And we'll check you guys tomorrow after the game.